Again, we will continue what we have studied in the last class. So, we studied about nation, state, nationality, and nationalism, and religious fundamentalism and secularism. We have discussed about two kinds of nationalism which exist in India. One is secular nationalism, and another one is religious fundamentalism. Apart from that, we also have discussed about state a nation. Today, I'll be deliberating on the state, the concept of state. It is important for you to understand what is state, why we call an entity, a territorial entity, a state, and how can we call it a state is very important. In the last class, we have got a very little idea about what state is. And state is actually a combination of four elements. That's how we could define state: population, territory, government, and sovereignty. So these are the four elements which will be defining the state. Western scholar would define the state that it is a community of people more or less numerous. Community of people more or less numerous occupying a particular territory, possessing a government to which a great body of inhabitants render habitual obedience. So that was the idea with which we are acquainted with the concept of state. So a community of people, here we are actually talking about the population. So population can be more or less numerous. So we do not have a size of the population which is being mentioned. So you can have also like huge population. We have huge populous state like India and China. We also have you see the less populated state like Monaco. Like that way, we do not have a definite size of population. But earlier political theorists they usually said that population is supposed to be between 5,000 or 10,000 like that way. But this is not applicable nowadays. Okay, so we are supposed to have a population more or less numerous who is occupying a territory. When we say territory is consist of the land, consist of the sky and the water. Water element is also very important aspect of the state. When we talk about the water, you actually see that 3 kilometer from the coastal line for the coast area is considered the territory. But in Indian context, if we see territory 10 kilometer from the coast or 13 kilometer from the coast will be considered as Indian territory. So when we talk about the water, so territory is not only limited to land. We also have territory in terms of the airspace. We also have water space. So 10 kilometer from the very coastal line is defined as the territory as well as the air expanded across that land territory. So territory, when you talk about the territory, the land has to be fertile because we also talk about prosperity which is based on the territory. We talk about this Arab land, the even Islamic State were insignificant unless there were a discovery of oil that had made it prominent. So hence you say that when you talk about the territory, we are talking about the fertile land, we are talking about water and also airspace. And there is no definite size of the territory. We can also see some cleavages in the territory. Suppose when you talk about Bangladesh and Pakistan, prior to the creation of Bangladesh, they were far apart from each other. So there is India in between. They were far apart from each other. So they constitute a nation. Okay, so you have a territory, constitute a nation, but it is actually far apart from each other. Okay, so we actually see that although we say territory has to be very compact, it has to be very concise, there are also examples that, or we say the exceptions that territory may not be compact and concise, but a nation is being formed. And we cannot even say that state is not formed. State is also formed. There was a definite territory, although not compact, although it is far apart from each other, miles away from each other. Although you see, there are government, there is also one political organization ruling both the territory and the state, what we call the state. Okay, there is only one sovereign power which got the recognition unless and until we have Bangladesh created. So hence, when you talk about the concept territory, it is also an asset at the same time, when because it will give us that land asset, it will give us that security framework at the same time. Without territory, you cannot even think about a state. So population and territory is very important aspect. And third aspect is the government, which is very important aspect of the state. When we talk of the government, government is basically the political organization to which a large body of inhabitant, the so-called population, will render habitual obedience. So when we talk about that political organization to which a large body of inhabitants like a population will render obedience. Okay, government may be of different types. You can have dictatorial government, you can have authoritarian government, you can have democratic government, you can also have military rule, you can have also aristocracy, you can have monarchy. So there are different types of government that you can have, to which you will render habitual obedience, to which you will extend your legitimacy. So without government, you also cannot think of a state, because state come into exist when there is a political organization. So without having a political organization, you cannot think of a state. Fourth element is sovereignty. When you talk of the sovereignty, it is all about the power to rule. Sovereignty is about power to rule. So without sovereignty also you cannot have a state. You cannot have a parallel structures which will decide you what to do, what not to do inside the state. So in a state, we can also say that we need to have a sovereignty, that is also international legitimacy apart from the legitimacy from the people. And that's how we can define state from Western perspective. Now, I'd like to give you Indian perspective about the state. We can see that from Western perspective, we can have four elements to define the state, right? Population, territory, then government, different types of government, and a political organization basically. And the fourth element is the sovereignty. No parallel structure inside the state which can control the highest authority. So it is all about power to rule, and that kind of legitimacy you will get from the very people. And also you have a legitimacy from international organization which will give you uh, 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 not only guidance but give you a kind of legitimacy. Okay, you go ahead, that kind of say, to attain that sovereignty. Okay, but apart from that four element, when you talk about Saptang theory, Saptang is a kind of theory which has been provided by Kautilya. This one Saptang theory. It is provided by Kautilya, and it is mentioned in Arthashastra. Okay, so we 4th century BC we actually have Saptang theory. That is an Indian perspective of state. So apart from, we see that we have government. Government is defined by the Swami here. Swami is the king basically, and also he defines some of the characteristics and attribute of the king. King is supposed to be resolute. King is supposed to be wise. King is supposed to be disciplined. King is supposed to be trained in order to rule. So, resolute is one character, that is also wise, trained, and disciplined are some of the characters of the king which he enumerated. So, instead of, you see, the political organization which we talk of from Western perspective, in Indian perspective, we have an element, and that is called Swami, the ruler. And from Swami, we move to second element, that is called Amatya. Amatya is the ministers actually. Ministers are to be loyal and competent, and also trained and disciplined in order to provide suggestions to the king. So Amatya are the ministers. This element is not mentioned in the Western philosophy of state. Third element is the Janapada. Janapada means the territory as well as the population. So about which we get to find references in Western perspective, Western theory of the state. When you talk about the Janapada, it consists of the territory, it consists of the people, the same time. So you talk about human asset as well as land asset here, over which you will rule. Fourth aspect is Kosa. Kosa is the tragedy. We talk about the financial resources. Kosha, we call it Kosha is the tragedy, financial resources, without which you cannot think about having a security arrangement, you cannot think about maintaining law and order, you cannot even think about governing. So Kosha is another element. Then we have Danda. We have a danda. Danda is related to military and army. So that is another element which has been mentioned by Kautila. So we need to have a danda or military, sound military arrangement and system in order to prevent any kind of external aggression and also to maintain law and order. Then there are also Durga. Durga is another concept. Durga means fort, or you see that is also another capital. Fort, that is fortress, you need to have a Durga in a sense that a kind of security arrangement. Unlike Danda and Durga is different. Yeah, here you are talking about infrastructure, different kind of infrastructures which you require in order to have a sound government and in order to rule. And last one is Mitra, which is also very important. Mitra is basically the allies from where you get the support, so which is also not mentioned in the Western perspective. So we get to find another three element, additional element in our Indian understanding of the state, unlike the Western perspective. In Western perspective, we do have the population, territory, government, as well as sovereignty, which will sovereignty will legitimize. Government is an organization. Without organization, you cannot even think of the rule. And the territory, which is to be like in a fertile and extend to sea and the airspace that you have, and water and a sea element is also very important aspect of the territory, and also to be concise, compact, in order to have prosperity, overall prosperity of the nation. Then we have the population. When you say the population, we do not have a definite size, but it should be of that many in number that could govern or be a electorate. So, like that way, it is being defined in Western theory. But in Indian theory, we have additional element like we have that Amatya. Amatya is a ministerial aspect. We have Mitra that support allies. So our international relationship, our bilateral ties with other countries are being highlighted in Indian theories. So when we actually understand politics from Indian perspective, it is also more about having international ties, having bilateral ties with other countries. It is about multilateral ties. So without which you cannot understand politics. That's why it is being mentioned about the support that you were supposed to get from other countries, and also kind of ties, kind of trade and other kind of linkages, and also your membership in international organization, in IMF, in GATE, in even UN, in different organs of the UN is also very important in order to leverage that support from international organization, which has been mentioned in Indian perspective of the state. Okay. Then Danda is also there. Danda Durga is equivalent. So having infrastructure as well as that military arsenal, arm, immunities. You are supposed to have that stockpile in order to prevent any kind of external aggression, which is very important for the state, about which you won't get any mention in the Western theory. But here we have emphasized upon having that hard power. So ancient, you see that Kautila emphasized ancient political thinkers emphasized on hard power and having armed immunities in order to prevent any kind of external threat. Okay, then we also have Danda, Durga Kosha, that is financial resources, which they usually collected from the civilians only in the form of tax and the revenue. So about which we get to get mentioned in Indian theory of the state. So if you talk about the evolution, if you actually get to know about the evolution of the state over the years, then you see how it has evolved from very tribal formation we actually say they're a primitive tribe, you should understand about this evolution, then we will have better understanding about the concept called nationalism, nation state. So we can discuss some of the elements of the nationalism, some aspects, some types of nationalism, but without understanding the evolution of nation state, your learning and knowledge of nationalism will also be impact. And so when you say evolution, we can start from the very primitive era. So we have that primitive era, we have tribal society, which is actually based on the customs basically, and customs were the morals. So there was no law and there was no political organization. So we can actually imagine of having a state when we have that political organization. Unless and until we have a political organization, we cannot think of having a state. So in primitive society, there is no political organization, and society was matrilineal. So matriarchal society, in a sense that nature has bestowed power to, like, women to, to upbring the child, and hence that society was matriarchal. So later they moved to patriarchy, that male head will control the society. But initially it was matriarchal society, and tribes were nomadic. They were not settled in one particular space. They moved from one place to other place. So as they moved from one place to other place in search of food, in search of, you see, water, and in search of their livelihood, they are called nomadic because they did not settle in one particular place. Now, and also you see that kinship and blood relations, they were very intact in them, and that's what they define. That's what defined them. That was the identity. And you see that they were very good at like warfare. We actually say that they're good at warfare, and they're ruled by some customs, and there were no law. They did not observe any kind of law, but customs became the law. But there was also a fury of unseen or any kind of a ghost, because this think that if they won't follow the custom, they will also invite the fury of the unseen or a god. That's how we can define the very primitive tribe, nomadic tribe. So from nomadic tribe we move to settled tribe, but we started with the nomads. Then we actually see the like the settled tribe, and in settled tribe we have the Ottoman Empire, and that's how we also get to see Harappa civilization, even that Tigris, in the river of Nile, river of Tigris, we have different kind of civilization came up, because they till then learned the technique of exchange. Initially, they did not learn the technique of exchange. They know some customs. That customs determine their marriage, birth, date, everything. They have the festivities. They usually go by all the merriment, song, dance. That is also one kind of security, social security, which bind them. Their songs, their folk, that binds them. That's a narrow circle, and that song, dance, festivities are the kind of social security arrangement for them. Okay, but there was no political organization. There was no rule. Then we move to the Ottoman Empire. In Ottoman Empire, we get to see exchange of goods, some skills like cultivation. So cultivation, they started learning cultivation. They started having new skills related to warfare. They also started thinking about an organizations for a king, and also having a soldier. So during the Ottoman Empire, they also think about having a place where they could settle. So having houses and everything. Okay, so that came during Ottoman Empire, and that's how civilization started. Then we have actually see Athens, that was another like an oldest civilization, and the very word polity came from the uh, Athens, actually city state. So we talk about the polis. Polis is also related to the polity, the nation. So it came from the city state. They have certain state which is also surrounded by hills, mountains, okay, which created as a fortress, created as a Durga kind of. okay, and also have given the opportunity to trade across the communities, trade with other communities, or come in contact with other communities. So natural resources which actually gave them a lot of avenues to build a capital, and that's how they call themselves city state. And there are also populations, and we see when population, it is very important to understand the characteristics of population. Hence we have given importance about the understanding of caste, class. These are also some ascriptive identities, ethnicity, religion. These are some of the ascriptive identities by which we understand the population. So in at city state, we also have three types of population. We have we have the slave, so were in large number, one third of the population were slave, and they are not allowed to hold the property in Athens, but during Roman Empire they are allowed to hold the property. So slave society were there, and they were also justified even by political theories, justified the slave. And then we talk about the metics and the aliens. So they can hold the property, and but they cannot take part in political organization. They cannot take part in any kind of political affairs. They cannot make any decision, etc. And then we move to the citizen. Citizen are that numerous community after the attaining of age 20. People who are called citizen can take part in political activities. But there are also some lacunas, although we have this kind of stratification in the Athenian society in the state, we see that this division at times was so permeated, and the demand from citizen to the political activities was so much that the family structure and role of the women was demeaned. So the activities of state has overpowered the activities of family. So in Athenian system, we get to see that family structure, family institution has been relegated. So emphasis is not given to family institutions. Women are usually confined to household. They cannot take part in any kind of political activities. So there was also division, or you see difference between the male folk and women folk. Only male folk can take part in politics, and they are the citizens. Women are not citizens and take part in politics. They can only raid and that groom the children. So their role is being relegated. Family institution has been relegated because these citizens cannot give time to whom. Okay, so they cannot give time to family affairs. So these are some of the problems which were noticed in Greek city state. Then we move to Roman Empire. If you talk about the civilization, how it started, we are talking about the civilization, because in order to understand the state, it's very important to understand the evolution of the state. Then we also have Roman Empire. During Roman Empire, we have see certain developments. So in Athenian city-state, we actually get to find the democracy. So democracy was uh, promoted without attaining the unification of the Athens, or the city state. So they did not think that all the uh, mini states are to be united in order to rule. But yeah, when you talk about the involvement of citizen in the political affairs and participation of citizen in the political affairs, then we actually see that the democracy is already achieved. Then we move to the Roman Empire. Roman Empire was one of the biggest empire. Why we call it empire? Athens, we know Athens as city-state, but we call Roman Empire because in 5th century BC, under the ruler called Augustus, under the ruler Augustus, Roman Empire actually expanded its territory from Europe to Africa. We get to see France, England, part of Germany, Portugal were under French, and also we have got to find its extension to the coastal area of Africa, to Egypt, Syria, Sudan, etc. Okay, so we actually see it as extended to Africa, extended to Europe. So it actually see that you see. the extension of Roman Empire. And during Roman Empire, we get to find unification and codification of law. Law was very important. So that was another development we see: unification and uniformity of law, codification of the law, and the centralized administration. The administration was centralized there, and also there is a system of revenue collection. So these are some of the development about system of revenue collection, uniformity of the law, and also about you see that codification of the law, because Roman always believe in unification, more unification and integrity, unity and integrity than even democracy. Okay, here also we get to see the stratification in the society, but Roman always sanction and approve slaves to own and amass as much property as they can. So that was a difference we get to see, but you won't find any kind of importance of liberty and local self-government in Roman Empire, during Roman Empire, which got emphasized during Teutonic tribe. So, downfall of Roman Empire can also date back to that, like for uh, 5th century BC, and then we get to find not 5th, 7th, or how many years, 400th century BC, we get to find out. Then we get to find Teutonic tribe. Teutonic tribe has actually overpowered the Roman Empire, and they do have come up with different political values. So their values are different. Their values are related to liberty, local self-government, individual rights. So from you see centralized administrations, we have adopted different kind of value system. So over the years, values have been transformed. Values have been, you see, circulated. Different values have been created. Okay, political values have given birth, and that's how we have achieved this state. And it's not only about some of the people; it is about governing elite and the kind of value system they adopt, kind of value system they cherish in governing the electorate is very very important, right? And hence this is the development. And then we also have a feudal state. After Teutonic tribe, we also have feudal state. During feudal state, we see another development coming up where hierarchy has come up. King is always at the like highest echelon. Under the king, we also have some tenants and landlords. The whole country is actually divided among the tenants and the landlord, and these tenants and landlord have another set of vessels and serf working under them. So you see that there is no direct connection of those who are landless laborers or landless peasant community with the king. So those farmers, landless farmers, doesn't have any connection. The farmer community do not maintain any connection with the king. So only the immediate, next immediate, that community in the hierarchy, like the tenants or nobility or feudal nobility, can have connection with the king. So that kind of hierarchy has been followed during the feudal order. So we get to find also that these landless pigeon communities are used even for different kind of warfare. Okay, so there was no provision of remuneration or any kind of compensation for labor. Even they are being used to fight for the tenants in different kind of warfare, because those feudal lords were usually more into the fights at that point of time, and they didn't take part in the fight. They actually used the farmers to take part in the fight. So in the feudal state, we find that king didn't have any kind of direct relationship with the bottom up people. So that kind of hierarchy has also been followed now, because the immediate that's what the community of the hierarchy, hierarchy and hierarchy are supposed to report to the king. So that landless farmer will report to the castle, vassal will report to the nobility, or the tenates will report to the nobility, nobility will report to the king. So that kind of system we get to find after Teutonic tribe, that feudal state. So there are certain factors also which will help you to understand the rise of the nation state. One is the Renaissance and Reformation. So earlier we get to find the importance of Latin only, which was being studied universally. But with the Renaissance Reformation movement during 14th and 15th century, emphasis on other language, French language, English language were also given importance. And initially, you also see that the people did not think rationally, so they were submitted themselves to the irrational, superstitious, and religious beliefs. So it is all during the Renaissance period that we get to find introduction of new courses in this universities. So introduction of laws, mathematics, science, in order to develop the scientific temper, that there was a thought developed that okay, we need to think of developing the scientific temper, and that came during the Renaissance period. So this belief, superstitious belief, and also irrational faith has submitted to scientific temperament during the Renaissance period. So people actually woke up from that deep slumber that has been lasted for years until we attain the Renaissance in 14th and 15th century, and that has also come the way for get rid of political absolutism. So political absolutism was fine when there is a monarchy. So what is political absolutism? Where you see the king is considered as a divine reason. He has stand by the God to rule you, and you cannot even question his order. You cannot interrogate. You cannot criticize him. So if you criticize him, so it will be considered as violation of the order of the God, and that is a political absolutism. That kind of political absolutism that we get to see prior to Renaissance and Reformation, even in England and other state also. That's why we get to find the Glorious Revolution, importance of Glorious Revolution, which has lead to a fight between the monarch and even parliamentarian, and ultimately install the parliamentary government, because lead to the killing of the king, then installing the parliamentary democracy in England, and monarchy also came up. And the same kind of revolution you get to find even in the France revolutions. That is also another that glorious revolution. It also established the republican values among the people. So it came after the Renaissance. Then also we find the imperialism. Imperialism actually loses its hold. So when we talk about the evolution of the nation state, we need to understand about the formation of nation state from imperialistic tendency even. So Europe, in you see that there is also a saying that sun. Uh, of European countries never used to set. And literally, it is also true. When I went to Morocco, we see that by 8 o'clock in the evening, we get to find that it's like 5 o'clock evening here in Assam. If you compare the kind of the timing differences. So by 7 or 8, you see people are as energetic as they are, and it's like a daylight. By 6 to it's a complete daylight. You won't find it 6 o'clock. It's complete daylight. Okay, so after 8, you get to find there is a gradual. That's what that does that element come. Imperialistic tendency of the European community has also led to birth of nation state. When we talk about imperialism nowadays, it is also uh, um, there is a we call about this like new colonialism, or nowadays that is also equated to imperialism. And when we discuss about imperialism, uh, what is important is the sovereignty of other state, because with that imperialistic tendency, you actually subjugate all other countries and create territory for your own being. And later on, you actually see those colonized countries started demanding the sovereignty, and that's how you see that nation state was created. That is the formation of even like African state. As I have told you that Africa did not have any history prior to it being colonized. So, after it is being subjugated by imperial power, the history was created. So, prior to it, there was no history in Africa. In that way, you also see that nation state has come up after like imperialist power took a hold of the governing of one state, and nationalism erupted, and then you see the disintegration of the colonial power, and a state nation state emerged from nationalism nation state emerged. But it is also very difficult to find out which come before, whether nation come before the state or state come before the nation. So we always question that. There were also other development regarding the you see power of a king. Initially, when we talk about the power of such and a king, which were equivalent. So such were not even different from the king. And the Pope had enormous power. He can rule over the king. Okay, so Pope can also dictate king to go barefoot and go by any kind of pinnacle. Okay, so that was the order initially. But after Renaissance Reformation, there was the gradual development that king started disobeying the order of Pope. Okay, so that happened in England also. Henry VIII has also refused to follow the order of the king when he actually wanted divorce from his queen, but Pope said that no, you can't get divorced. And then he disobeyed. He created a separate church and he declared him as a head of the church. So that was also another development which actually led to the rise of nation state. And development of middle class is also very, very important. So we have that nobility. Initially, this nobility were those noble class, we call it baron, feudal baron. They do have lands, huge amount of land under them. Okay, but you see that noble class have been exploiting those landless and even vassals and serfs. So there was a division in the society. We call it class division. There was a struggle in the society, plebeian patrician struggle, that also serf and tenants, struggle between serf and tenants. It's always there. That is a class struggle actually, and that tenants community, or you say that noble community or feudal baron, has been exploiting the that pigeon landless pigeon communities. So with the development of trade routes and commerce, you get to see that tenants community started acquiring wealth, because they also started demanding the freedom from those noble men, and they also started exploring other job, like they also explore commerce and all. So once they explore commerce and trade, they also have some wealth accumulated, and they also denounce the that domination of denounce the domination of the feudal baron. And gradually we see this class consider themselves as a noble class, okay, middle class, not middle class. So we also have a history of middle class in India. So it is very different from the history of middle class in West. And middle class itself is a hub of power. You cannot ignore the middle class. In any governing tactics, you cannot ignore the middle class, because middle class has also history of not being going with the ruling elite every time, but they are the consuming class at the same time, because they associate themselves with. You see that any kind of development, even when we say the environmentalism, it is also going against the middle class, or middle class are being called anti-environmentalist because of their consuming tendencies. So why it is so, I will be discussing. So you need to know when we say middle class, how we define middle class, who are those. It is important. We all are from the middle class, no? But we are also anti-environmentalists because of our consuming intent. We want to consume more. We want to have a very good park surrounding us where we can roam, and which can be a tourist destinations, even if it drives the tribes out, even if it drives the slums away. Okay, because that is our perception. So our perception makes us anti-environmentalists. At the same time, we also see the middle class and Rang the Basanti. So those who are consuming oriented youth, they're very consuming youth. They are driven by consumption, but they kill their politician. So middle class cannot be equated even to the political class. Okay, so there are different examples. You will also get to find that Raju Banbiya gentleman in that film. You find that Shah Rukh Khan, from the very slum, he has graduated. He become middle class. So that is a kind of upper mobility which is being shown in that particular film. And also you see that in Dil Chahta Hai, you see on NRI class which always feel at home. NRI class feel always at home. So this NRI class is also middle class, who are in West but always feel at home in West as well as at home in home. Even during pre-independence era, we have Raja Rammohan Rai, and all those liberal intelligentsia class were also middle class. Even it is called that Raja Rammohan Rai has a house, two houses. One is for having meeting and discussion with Western that elite, and one is having meeting and discussion with Indian elite. So in the Indian home, everything is Indian except the house. So in Western house, everything is Western except the house, he said, or except him. So that was also a kind of middle class identity. Okay, so we can analyze more and more about middle class, and this class, middle class, is also very important factor to the rise of the nation state. When they started accumulating wealth, when they denied any kind of dominations, they also started acquiring new methods of warfare. So earlier, when middle class were not there, only the landless peasant community working under the feudal serf, they were being used by feudal serf to war against any feudal lord, because those feudal lords were engaged in different kind of warfare to establish their domination and the hegemony over others. So every time you get to find war among the feudal lords, and many a times they declared war against the king, because if they created a kind of baronage, they can create a baronage. They have arms, ammunitions, bows, arrows, everything. There's baronage, and they declared war against the king. So king is actually at nowhere during the feudal time. So after middle class came up with the advancement of trade, advancement of technologies, okay, and also commerce, we get to find that king has got some power at that point of time. They can overthrow the domination of such. They can also go against the feudal lord, and that has happened. Even we get to find crusade in Jerusalem. That is also another development, because Jerusalem, you actually hub of Christianity under Palestine, that is a Turk community. So Christian people couldn't go there. So we get to find that there was a there was a this is actually unity. There was unity and integrity among that landless community. Then these feudal lords and king, they actually sideline all their differences, and they also fight for the crusade. Okay, so that was also another development for, you see, the nation state. So over the years, we get to find how nation state has evolved, and how we equate with this nation and nationality. As we said, that nationality is a philosophy, right? It's a philosophy, it's an ideology. ideology to have a commonality, or ideology around common language, common culture, common literature, common history, common past, common memory. So that's kind of ideology nationalism is. When you say nationality, it is actually legal membership of one particular community, you say state. So that is the difference between nationality and nationalism. Nationality denotes legal membership to one particular community. Legal membership, that is a nationality. I am Indian, I have Indian nationality. So I am Indian. So I hold legal membership to one particular community, Indian state. When you say nationalism, nationalism is an ideology. It is ideology which is permeated around that common culture, common language, common subjugation, common economic interest of the community. So, a community, when you get to find some commonality of past, of memories, you get to find the feeling of nationalities stemming. That's how we understand this concept. And nation state, we see that in many times state emerge and then nation come. The feeling of nation, that is a psychological feeling, emotional feeling, psychological and emotional construct come up once we get to find a territory, population, and governing body and legitimacy from international organization. In many other cases, we also find that nationalism lead to nation state. In Indian case, nationalism has led to nation state. But in France, state was existed first, nation state was existed first, then we get to find nationalism. French Revolution came later. In England, nation state existed first, nationalism came later. That's how we can have very brief understanding about this concept. Also, we have discussed about religious fundamentalism. That is one attribute of Indian nationalism. We see, or Indian nationalism are divided into two kind of nationalism. One is secular nationalism, and another one is religious nationalism. So when, or really not religious nationalism, we call it religious fundamentalism, or it might also equate it to communalism, say. So secular nationalism based on a composite culture, synthesis of all the culture, which is also based on Bhakti movement, Sufi movement. Who here we talk about Asoka's famous rock edict, and also we talk of Akbar's that Din Ilahi. You know about Din Ilahi, divinity among all, and Sulhi Kul, peace among all. We also talk about Christianity, then other Baha'i, Jainism, Buddhism. So every religion into one fold. So in secularism, we here talk about basically three separate actors. One is individual, one is state, and one is religion. And state and individual, when you talk about equating state and individual, it is all about individual being member of that community. When we equate individual and religion, it is about discussing about the rights, private rights. It is not about private, discussing about rights of the individual. And when we equate state and the religion, then it is more about using religion for political purpose. And secularism doesn't believe using religion for secular purpose. It believes in separating state from the religion. That's what secularism is all about. It believes in treating all religion equally, and the religion is a private affairs which are to be preached by all communities, and state has no relation uh, in intervening the private affairs of the people. And that's how we find the essence of secular nationalism. But in religious fundamentalism, in the last class, we have discussed that we have certain characteristics of religious fundamentalism. This is also a kind of belief which gives importance to one particular religion. It gives importance to one particular religion over other religion. So it is based on the identity of one particular religion, that our religion is the based over other. Our religion is based then the other religion in the same state. So that is a kind of nationalism which we say religious nationalism or religious fundamentalism. That is also another characteristics of Indian state. When you say the characteristics of Indian state, one is religious nationalism, another one is secular nationalism. These are the two defining features. And when we see the characteristics of religious nationalism, we see that there are some ideological features, there are also some organizational features. Ideological level, we find that there is one Messiah, as I have done, millennialism or Messiah, who will save all, one Messiah who will save all, who is actually sent by the God. That is also based on divine origin. That Messiah who will save all. Then the second ideology. Sorry? Messiah, based on actually divine origin of God. That is who is he? Actually, who is he? Divine origin is like a theory which was there to understand the notion of state, notion of the system, governing system. Okay, so when we talk about governing body nowadays, it's a legal governing body, constitutional governing body. So because representative, but in divine origin theory, there is no representation. Basically, one king who is all in all cannot question, and who is sent by the God to rule, to dictate, to do everything to save the community. Basically, to save the community from all the ills. So that is a kind of Messiah like attitude which you get to see in ideological orientation of religious fundamentalism. Okay. Second is the absolutism. What is absolutism? Absolutism in terms of reading the text, reading the religious scriptures. You think that religious scriptures are correct to the extent. There is no errors, there is no misinterpretation, there is no, you see, uh, demerits in the religious scriptures. So that is the absolute reading of religious scriptures, that whatever Shastras, other scriptures, Purans, or Bible has provided us is absolute. So your interpretation is absolute. You won't see anything, any demerits. You won't see anything wrong in the scriptures. So that kind of absolutism is there in ideological orientation of religious fundamentalism. Okay, be it Hindu, I'm telling you, it is not related to one community. You find religious fundamentalism in Hindu, in Muslim, in Christianity. Everywhere we find that religious fundamentality. So it is not a typical feature of one particular community. It is around the religion. When we consider one religious identity above other religious identity, we consider one above other. We consider one in and others are out. So it is also based on that social categorization of in, out, us, them kind of divide and polarization. So it is based on that cluster, based on that polarization, intent. It is also based on that absolute interpretation of religious texts. It is based on that messianism. It is also based on moral dualism. Everything they see as black and white. There is no gray line. Okay, so that is another feature of religious, fundamentalism, and ideological orientation of religious fundamentalism, that they see everything in black and white. Okay, and then we also see the target of minorities. They usually target the minorities as marginalized communities. So in every religion, you also see, if you go to Arab countries, I went to Morocco and all. So Morocco is a very liberal state, but when you pass to Saudi Arabia and all, it's a Muslim-dominated country. But let me tell you, I should not have that, but I also had a kind of differences felt in me. Okay. So, and that same kind of differences are also feeling people from Muslim community here in India. Let me tell you, even when it's Jamia Nagar out there in like Delhi, in Jamia, around the Jamia Millia Islamia University, even in a Muslim ghettos. So you get to find that kind of feeling came out of that religious fundamentalism. Okay, so you see, and Christianity is also not different from that extreme form of Christianity, we tell you. Okay, so it is important to understand at ideological level they always target the minority and they try to marginalize the minority community. Okay, by creating that us versus them attitude. So that is one orientation. Organizational orientation will also define religious fundamentalism. So at organizational level, what you get to see is a strict code of behavior, strict behavioral code. They want you to follow some behavior, to dress in such a way, and to talk in such a way, and also to like have a feelings which is also defined by that community, which is actually subsume your individual identity to collective identity to group identity. So here you do not have any individual identity. So they define a behavioral code. You are supposed to adopt a behavioral code and you will be subsume your individual identity to group identity. So that is a kind of organizational orientation you will get in any kind of communal organization if you see, if you ask, and if you observe. And then what you see is um, the idea that few people are there to who are born and few people are there who are saved and few people are there who are damned. So they have created division between those who are born elite, who are born privileged, and they are the one who have saved those who are marginalized. And there are also some minority community which are supposed to be damned. That kind of feeling, which is also get to find at organizational level. And charismatic leadership. They always look for charismatic leadership who can influence you, inspire you. They look for those leadership and try to get, you say, a yes or a kind of positive nodding from them. So that's how briefly about your idea about religious fundamentalism. We also discuss about militancy, religious militancy and growth of religion. We talked about religious revivalism in last class, if you could remember. We discussed about religious revivalism. Religious revivalism cannot be equated to religious fundamentalism and religious militancy. So what we are talking about, religious militancy, they will target the minority. They will generate lot of hate speech against that minority community. They will even kill the minority. They'll try to exterminate the minority. They consider them someone as cockroach and they are to be eliminated, etc., etc., especially the minority community, if they are not proselytized, if they are not ready to convert. So that is a kind of tendency we get to find in religious militancy. So they go to kill someone to the extent if they are refusing to follow the behavioral code or refusing to follow having an attitude or refusing to convert. So the religious right is being eliminated. The right to religion, which has bestowed upon us by the constitution, which is enshrined in Article 25, is being eliminated. So they will also stop you from getting into any kind of religious institution. You have every right to access to any religious institution. You have every right, but they will also stop you access to any religious institution. Or there is a definition is like that's a different thing altogether. Now you see, when you talk about religious revivalism, when you say religious revivalism, this is all about growth of one religion. So you think about understanding the scriptures in a correct way, but you are not supposed to distort it in the name of correction. So understanding it in such a way which is for the larger interest of the community is about religious revivalism. What we get to find in Brahmo Samaj, Arya Samaj, in the Theosophical Society, in Takta Bodhini Sabha during pre-independent period. So we have those association try to work on religious revivalism. They actually tried to revive religion. They worked on reviving the religion, which was dying, and tried to eliminate the social ill from that particular religions or ill practices from that religion. Okay, so revivalism, the tendency of religious revivalism is always different. It is at level. You cannot mix it with religious fundamentalism. Okay, any question you have? Because I have been speaking on and on without. Do you have any question? When we even talk about the society, we talk about communalism. No, communalism is also one tendency when you give primacy to one religious tendency over other religious tendencies. So it is related to religious identity. So this communalism get to find in ethnic nationalism also. In last class, we have discussed about four types of nationalism. One is civic, another one is individual, then we have ethnic and collectivistic nationalism. In collectivistic nationalism and ethnic nationalism, you get to find the communalism, the intent of communalism. So if you study in detail, so if you talk about civic nationalism, it is mostly about your civic life, where you try to cherish your civic life, where you have a constitution which will bind you to different rules, different laws, different regulations, different rights. So you enjoy a life which is being bound by constitution. So that is equated to civic nationalism. So you cherish your constitutional values as political values. You cherish the rights which are enshrined in the constitution. You enjoy the rights which are enshrined in the constitution, and you enjoy your civic life to the fullest. So you enjoy political rights, civic rights, which are enshrined in the constitution. You enjoy your civic right, like life, huh, right to form association, be a member of that association, even your political life. You see, right to vote, right to take part in any kind of political affairs to the fullest. Okay, so that is civic nationalism. So which we get to see almost in every state, but there is also more or less amount in countries across the world. So if we define the countries having civic nationalism, okay, so USA definitely have a civic nationalism, but more than civic nationalism, USA now pronounce collectivistic nationalism. Why? Because it believes in primacy of nation over the community. They consider nation as a whole and want to take group identity over individual identity. By virtue of its supremacy across the other countries and across the world, so we also have that universalism, securitization, militarism, and also humanitarian intervention. These are some of the facets of American collectivistic nationalism, through which they usually try to expand their nationalistic tendencies. They want other countries to follow their ethos, their values, their philosophies. Okay, and hence, more than civic and individualistic nationalism, we find the primacy of collectivistic nationalism of US, where group identity matter more than individual primacy. You see, there is liberal democracy, but they also want to extend it across the world. What does liberal democracy say? You don't have to intervene in any other's affair, but they are not intervening the affairs of the people. They have already intervening the affairs of the people. They are also intervening the affairs of the other state. They decide the kind of government that should have. They decide the kind of economic system that the other countries should have. So that is a kind of collectivistic nationalism. Okay, so a country can say that we have, but you are there to interpret the kind of nationalism that you have. So you need to open your lens and to question and to see and to analyze. Okay, like that way, we also have, you see, ethnic nationalism, which is based on ascriptive identities, be it religion, be it caste, be it class. So we have certain ascriptive identities, so which will help us to attain nationhood. So even we talk about Mizo nationality, Boru nationality, these are some kind of ethnic nationality. Even the communalism is also kind of ethnic nationalism. Communalism, when you give preference to one religious identity over the other, that is a kind of communalist tendency. Okay. Do you have any question? Should I leave you now? Because you have a class now, no? You understood what is being said? You understood, no?